talk about hearing that as well.
Every now and again, the friend would hear the rolling of what sounded to be a decapitated head up and down the front corridor. As soon as he went to go check, the noise stopped. Many decades earlier, the same experience was recounted by a different proprietor of the house, recounting in his autobiography, or as he called it, his auto-hagiography. Quote, "I certainly used to hear the quote-unquote rolling of the head, but when I put in a billiard table, the old gentleman preferred it to the corridor and confined his amusements to the gunroom. Even before that, he had always stopped at the pylon of the corridor which marked off from the rest of the house the wing which was consecrated to Abramella. I have never discovered any explanation of these noises. We used to listen at the door of the gunroom, and the head would roll merrily up and down the table with untiring energy. The moment we opened the door, the noise would stop, but there would be no visible cause."
Other happenings. But according to his confessions, he said that the state already had lots of stories and things about it already. I would not doubt that Crowley saw that. And being into Jacobism at the time, he was very into Jacobism. He was also very into like kind of military strategy and stuff like that. I would not doubt that he probably saw that and played a factor into him deciding that he wanted Boleskine House. Mm-hmm. Apparently he bought it for twice its market value at the time, which was £2,000. Now this is all render here. I never had this before.
Granite construction having definite gaps between the three principal rooms that show obvious later additions, and the lock-facing installation on the elevated position that it enjoys. Whether it was temporary housing during the construction of the road overseen by General Wade throughout the Rebellion years, or an actual positioning for a lookout, our findings thus far are absolutely fascinating.
We're really happy that Mark Lidster signed on to our board. We're in the process of speaking with our structural engineers and our architects, and we're formulating plans right now. We've not been able to put it online, so it doesn't look like there's much being done, but in fact lots of stuff's being done behind the scenes, getting ready for emergency works. We're going to be talking to the Highland Council about what needs to be done, what kinds of retainment we need to do, whether we need to take stuff down before we build it back up, what we have to remove, essentially to make the building more safe and to be able to clear it out. As Mark had said in the video, and this is what's really fascinating because this is new stuff that we haven't thought about before. But we see over here, if we were on the inside, and you can tell, this was added later, right? From here to the next bowed window over here is probably the main original structure. Everything else was kind of built on afterward.
The Boleskine House aims to restore Boleskine House to its historic sympathy. The building itself is protected by law as a Grade B listed building, and certain features of its external fabric is required to be restored like for like. As an important part of esoteric history and Scottish heritage, for that matter, we want to retain its Georgian and Jacobean features, especially with its three principal rooms that are lock-facing. As such, we aim to design it with some traditional features to reinstate the historic oratory of Crowley and to install a large library in the southern wing.
If you see the coach house, which we can go up to shortly, the coach house and the gatehouse that you saw at the beginning, it doesn't have any render. It used to look like that. Next we'll go to this piggery building. It's more modern construction, but looks like a 1950s, 1960s build to me. It's quite derelict. You'll know it's a piggery when we go inside.
Later history has remained a location of eccentric stories and tales, both before and after Crowley. For example, one tale speaks of an old church that was once stood on the land, of which the structure caught fire and burned the congregation alive. Another, that a minister of the Boleskine parish had to put bodies back to rest after they rose from their graves. Another colorful story involves the estate just prior to Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin's ownership. The rock and roll legend, of course, that I referred to in the beginning. Boleskine became one of the early stages of one of the largest scandals in the 1960s, known as the Cadco Affair, or the Great Sausage Scandal.
One of the biggest scandals, actually. This actor named Dennis Lorraine, he was kind of a Casanova type con man, was running around, had several different wives, but primarily a real swindler. He cornered, of all things, the sausage market in the UK, and he teamed up with another fairly famous actor, George Sanders, who played in lots of early films, 1930s, 1940s, played in some Hitchcock films. We might know him from Disney's Jungle Book animated feature, being the tiger, Shere Khan, and that was his voice. They teamed up, and they basically promoted a food production outlet in the UK where they would feed all of Scotland, all of the UK, through these sausages they were going to produce.
Specifically, Royal Victorian sausages. Royal being a special sort of sausage that included a spice that was favored by King Edward VII of the royal family. Lorraine and Sanders were able to secure millions in grants and loans from the government and banks. The only catch was that the sausages never existed, except for on paper. Boleskine House was part of this massive scandal as it featured a piggery on the land, which still stands today.
And the prototype of this scandal started here with piggery. They were going to farm pigs, and then they were going to produce the sausages in a neighboring village. And basically they got hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of pounds in grants from the government, high loans with banks with low interest, and basically it only ever existed on paper. They pocketed the money, they put it in Swiss bank accounts, and it never existed. But it all kind of started here because I think it was Dennis Lorraine's second wife had a great interest in the house. She had an interest in the fact that Aleister Crowley used to own it, and they were kind of separated at the time, but she begged him to buy it. So he bought the land, in which she stayed in, and then they were going to start this operation, this food production operation. So I think that's why this piggery building stands today. Now this is going to be dating back to Boleskine House, which is the coach house. The piggery and this building are actually not owned. It was bought as a separate lot than the main house.
Okay.
But our trustee, William, pitched in and bought this lot. And the idea is that we're going to go through planning permissions and reinstate this house. It would have been stables back in the day. We hope to make it kind of a common space. It's got quite a bit of room, lecture halls, things like this. The foundation really wants to promote a lot of education and things like this. So we'll be having maybe art events. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. This was probably installed by the McGilvrays when they owned it in the 1990s. They had it as a bed and breakfast. My assumption is that they wanted to have an even 200-year sort of thing. So they made Fraser 1792 and McGilvery 1992. We're always happy for people to come up and visit, but we've made a process of it now. So we need people to contact us for it first. We need you to tell us why you want to come up here. We're trying to keep trespassing down. And it's not because we don't want people on our land. It's because it's an extremely dangerous area to be up here, and it holds us liable. But we need waivers to be signed, standard stuff, just out of respect to us and to the charity. But do be sure to look into our traveling policies and procedures on our website if you care to visit. Funding is going to be the biggest support for us right now, and we have a very small membership program. I say small because it doesn't actually cost very much, and it will help us out a great deal. It's less than £8 a month. It's £7.77 a month, or £93 a year. And that's our top tier. So we have a smaller tier as well. But I always tell people to go for the top one because you'll get 2 journals that we'll be putting out biannually a year, along with like lots of great information and like stuff that we won't always post on social media, but you'll have kind of some more detailed information about the project and more ways. We'll probably approach our members about getting more involved with different things. So that's kind of the main thing is our Friends of Boleskine membership, which you can find at boleskinehouse.org. Kenneth Anger stayed here for a little while.
Really?
Yeah, right before Jimmy Page owned it. The avant-garde Crowley filmmaker,
Yeah.
Kenneth Anger. And, I think it was kind of vacant. He just kind of like moved himself in.